You may not have liked him, but J. Edgar Hoover was no dummy. As a student in high school, he joined the debate team. After one debate, the school newspaper applauded him for the cool, relentless logic he possessed in destroying his opponent's position. In 1916, he obtained a Bachelor of Law from the George Washington University Law School and a Master of Law degree just 1 year later. Most would not dispute this assessment. Hoover was highly intelligent. So why did it take him so long to admit there was a mafia? A criminal organization which stretched from coast to coast. One theory believes it was due to money. Investigating a secret criminal society would have cost millions of dollars and bore little fruit. And Hoover loved headlines, which got him more money for the Bureau. So he went after bank robbers and murderers who were well known to the public. These criminals would give him the headlines he needed, and therefore justify his request to Congress for more appropriations. Another theory claims that the Red Scare was real. During the 1950s, the United States was engaged in a war with the North Koreans, who were being supported by the Chinese and the Soviet Union. These were the years of the Cold War. Hoover and many in Congress believed communist subversives had infiltrated the government and were attempting to overthrow the very freedom they and J. Edgar Hoover loved. Therefore, his focus on the communist menace, according to him, was justified. Even though both of the previously stated theories may have been true, could there be possibly a third reason? And is it possible that his denial of the existence of the Mafia was the result of the way the question was posed? Is there a Mafia? And herein lies the shibboleth. In order to answer this question, we must first define the term. How was it used? And most importantly, to whom it applied. Crime writer Carl Sifakis notes, historians disagree as to the age of the Mafia. Some trace its origins to 1812, others to 1860, and still others say it goes back to the 13th century, to the society that was founded in Sicily to fight the oppression of the French Avengers. Joe Bonanno, whom I've quoted numerous times, seems to agree and spells out a more romantic view, of which I've quoted twice before. In his book Man of Honor, he states that the Mafia was born as a result of a Sicilian maiden who was raped by a French soldier in 1282. An uprising ensued throughout the tiny island in which thousands of French occupiers were killed by the citizenry. Their battle cry during the massacre came from the hysterical weeping of the girl's mother, who ran through the streets of Palermo shouting, "Mafia, Mafia," meaning "my daughter, my daughter." Therefore, according to Bonanno, the Mafia began as a patriotic movement to liberate Sicily from foreign rule. Bonanno didn't really see the organization as being criminal at all. He wrote, "Mafia is a process, not a thing. Mafia is a form of a clan cooperation to which its individual members pledge lifelong loyalty, friendship, connections, family tie, trust, loyalty, and obedience. This was the glue that held us together." Please pay close attention to Bonanno's last statement, especially the first proposition. Mafia is a process, not a thing. Bonanno appears to believe this, and this has led a few to conclude that Bonanno may have been the last of the true members of the Mafia. In fact, he may have been more of a traditionalist than his own godfather, Salvatore Maranzano. Bonanno seems to believe that these were the principles he was fighting for during the Castellamare War. Bonanno explained that after Joe the Boss was murdered by his own men, and subsequently lost the war, Maranzano, the victor, began behaving strangely. And the first sign may have been his employment of the term Cosa Nostra, our thing. Remember, Bonanno said it wasn't a thing. Before and during the Castellammarese War, Maranzano, Profaci, Magadino, Bonanno, and others proclaimed they just wanted to be left alone to run their families without interference from anyone. With Masseria out of the way, did Maranzano begin to sing a different tune? Did he fancy himself in the tradition of his idol, the Roman Emperor Julius Caesar? Did the aforementioned men simply change one supreme boss who meddled in their family business for another? It made little difference. A few months later, Maranzano was also to meet his maker. It is interesting to note that Bonanno, in his book, appears to brush over the killing of Maranzano, almost as if Maranzano had betrayed what they had fought for in the war, and Bonanno kind of shrugs it off. Anthony Bruno, writing for the Crime Library, concludes, Joseph Bonanno claims he knew nothing of the plot to kill Maranzano, a statement that defies mob logic. If he had been as loyal to Maranzano as he says, then he too would have been assassinated. But in fact, he benefited greatly from Maranzano's demise, becoming a boss of a sizable portion of Maranzano's gang. At age 26, he became the youngest crime boss in America. Perhaps Bonanno did fear he was next, and therefore had no choice but to nod in agreement at the plans of Luciano and others. Or still possibly, he saw the handwriting on the wall. Either a boss of bosses or a commission was going to meddle in his family's business, and therefore he chose the latter. And yet throughout his book, Bonanno seems to be distressed that the old ways were gone. He doesn't really care for Luciano, the commission, or the national syndicate that he helped to create. He mocks it at times. He defies it. When Vito Genovese called the meeting in Appalachian, Bonanno didn't attend. Who's Genovese to give him orders? He wasn't even a Sicilian. And herein lies the crux. Bonanno explains to be Mafia, one must first be Sicilian, not Italian. And it is the family connection, by blood and geography, which holds them together. As previously noted, the Mafia was, according to Bonanno, a nationalistic movement to rid the Isle of Sicily of foreign invaders. On the other hand, the Italian Camorra was a criminal enterprise from start to finish, through and through. They were only in it for the money, but the traditional Mafia, the Sicilians, believed in honor. With the death of Masseria and Maranzano, and the subsequent purge over the next year, numerous old-world mafioso, the remaining mustache Petes, the true mafioso in Bonanno's mind, were all killed. Writing in the 1950s, Burton Turkis, the man who successfully prosecuted the syndicate's enforcement arm known by the public as Murder Incorporated, and who convicted and condemned its leaders, including Louis Lepke Buchalter, to the electric chair, made this note in his book. Mafia, the Kefauver Committee said officially, is also known as the Black Hand and the Unione Siciliano, with no attempt to dim the work done by the senators. I should like to point out that the Unione is no more Mafia than man is an ape. In fact, as a factor of power in the national crime, Mafia has been virtually extinct for 2 decades. Now, before you jump to any conclusions, allow Mr. Turkis to continue. He later wrote, "The day Maranzano got it was the end of the line for the greaser crowd, the finish of the mustache Petes, and a definite wind-up to Mafia as entity and a power in national crime. For in line with Lucky's edict, which had been inspired by Lepke's pervasiveness, some 30 to 40 leaders of the Mafia's older group, all over the United States were murdered that day, and in the next 48 hours. Throughout the book, Turkis, who believed there was a national crime syndicate, appears to mock those who employ the term mafia. Based on testimony from other organized crime figures, Turkis states that the mafia had been wiped out back in 1931 and that it was foolish to classify any and all organized crime as mafia. The combination, he wrote, was the self-appointed successor to the mafia. Since 1931, any similarities has been purely imaginative. Turkis goes on to explain that Johnny Torrio, who is Italian and not Sicilian, was instrumental in setting up the syndicate of gangsters from all over the country. And Luciano's job was to get rid of the mafia, the old Sicilian guard. And this was achieved, according to Turkis and other prosecutors, in 1934 when the National Crime Syndicate was born. So back to the original question. How could someone as intelligent as J. Edgar Hoover deny the existence of the mafia? Could this understanding that the mafia was wiped out by Luciano have been in his mind when the question was posed? Is this the understanding that caused the lamentations from Joe Bonanno? Though organized crime is with us today, was 1931 the end of the Sicilian Mafia? I would love to read your comments below.